All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the July 2nd, 2024 Hempstead Town Board meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Clavin.
Here.
Councilman Carini.
Here.
Councilman Dunn.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby.
Here.
Councilwoman Miller.
Here.
Councilman Muscarella.
Yeah. All right, with that, I'm going to ask Councilman Dunn, our Marine on the Town Board, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All rise, face the American flag, remove your hats or hand salute if you are a veteran. Place your right hand over your heart and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you sit, if we have a moment of silence, Councilwoman Laura Ryder couldn't be here. She's at the funeral of her father, who was a real community blessing in Lynbrook, father of 10, and really a pillar of the community. If just giving a moment of silence for her. Thank you all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first public hearing.
We have a proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to parking in Seaford and near Valley Stream.
Okay. Any member of the board wish to be heard on this item? All right. I do not have any slips on item number 1. Anybody who wishes to be heard that did not sign in? If not, may I please have a motion?
I move the public hearing be closed and the board adopt the item.
Second.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in Elmont, Levittown, Oceanside, and Wantagh.
All right, member of the board wish to be heard? I do not have any slips on item number 2. Anybody wishes to be heard on item number 2 that did not sign in? If not, may I please have a motion?
I move the public hearing be closed and the board adopt the item.
Second motion.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Carini. Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby. Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Proposed local law regarding arterial stops in Franklin Square, Levittown, Roosevelt, and Wantagh.
Okay, any member of the board wish to be heard on item number 3? I do not have any slips on item number 3. Anybody wishes to be heard on this item that did not sign in? If not, may I please have a motion?
I move the public hearing be closed and the board adopt the item.
I second the motion.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Proposed handicap parking on public streets in East Meadow, Elmont, Uniondale, near Valley Stream.
Any member of the board wish to be heard on this item? All right, bless you. I do not have any slips. Any member of the audience that wishes to be heard on item number 4 that did not sign in? If not, may I please have a motion?
Dorothy?
I moved number 4 and asked all of the council members to pass it.
Can I get a second on that?
I second the motion.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman Miller. Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call item number 4. Oh, I'm 5, I'm sorry.
Proposed enactment of Article 44 of the Building Zone Ordinance to be titled Rescission of the Transit-Oriented Development and Related Districts for North Lawrence and Inwood.
You sure you got that Roman numeral?
No.
You got it? Okay, so make sure. Okay. Not giving you a hard time, Susie. Mr. LaSquadra, I'll let you start off if you would. Maybe talk to the most of the people. I see a lot of them are probably interested in this from the sign-in sheet. You could identify yourself and explain to everybody.
Yes, sir, and thank you. Stephen LoSquadro, Special Counsel to the town, particularly regarding land use matters. Supervisor, members of the board, as you know, this relates to Article 18 of the Building Zone Ordinance, what we call the BZO, and particularly that Article 18 of the BZO relates to districts in Inwood and North Lawrence. The board, recognizing that this was not an ordinance and not a local law that it itself had voted on and put into effect, wanted to make sure that the best interests of the community were being taken into account, given the fact that A, this district is 5 years old since it was initially enacted, and B, the district itself had the potential for significant impacts in and around the Inwood and North Lawrence areas. Further, the board recognized that special care had to be taken under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, what we know as SECRA, to make sure that a hard look was being taken at potential impacts that could have come out of that zone. What the board recognized after hiring a very well-known environmental consultant and expert, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, to really take a deep dive into the enactment and the potential consequences of the zone, is that not enough of a hard look was taken at the time in the enactment of that zone from a SECRA perspective, particularly with respect to certain impacts that could come out of the district. Further, the board recognized that over a period of time, circumstances have changed. This was a zone, as we mentioned, not enacted by this board, but put into effect previously, but circumstances changed. More congestion, more traffic, other environmental concerns that could come up over a period of time. And what the board said was, and what the board recognized, was that rescission of this zone would be more appropriate under the circumstances because of the fact that environmental concerns were not looked at to the extent that they should have been at the time that the zone and this Article 18 of the BZO was enacted. Now further, community members, other stakeholders have expressed those considerations to the board as well. And the board has wished to react to that, to take all of those concerns and comments into account by then considering rescission and proposing a resolution that would invite discussion. Now, what the town has done is put forth a resolution which again is designed to invite discussion, to consider comment, to hear from stakeholders, community members, others who would have an interest in what the town is considering. The town board is here today to listen. Nothing has been predetermined. And what the town wishes to do is to come out of this process considering a resolution that would rescind, recognizing that there were certain applications made previously and there could be concerns about litigation and other factors that may relate to that. Taking all of those things into account, and again, fundamentally, the fact that the town board recognized that not enough of a hard look environmentally was done in the past, was to have people here today to open this for discussion and then to keep an open mind to consider how to move forward. So Supervisor, members of the board, that's what brings everybody here today with respect to Article 18 of the BZO and the potential rescission of that article.
All right, thank you, Mr. Squadro. Obviously, by today's turnout, we have a number of speakers that are here, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted all of you took the time to come out here today, and I'm going to ask you when I call your name, you're going to go to the podium right there. The public safety officer, if that my public, just wave your hand. It's the podium. No, you're not public safety. It's right there. You're going to give your name, your address, where you live. We'd like to know where you live, as we do customarily here at town board meetings, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. In addition to that, as Mr. Squadro said, you know what? There might be an opportunity at the end. We've had a number of residents who have reached out to us and asked about submitting comments online, and the town board is considering making that at the end of this. So people who are unavailable today can be heard and could be included in this process. Is that fair to say, Mr. LaSquadro?
Yes, sir. I know that the board has expressed the willingness and actually the desire to make sure that not just today, but following this, that there's the most full and fair opportunity to be heard, and that would be kept open for that purpose.
Great. Thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to go down the list, and if you haven't signed in and you want to be heard, you have to go to the back and do so, and I'll start off with fair enough. Councilwoman Miller also wants, and rightfully so, we have received a number of emails from a number of residents throughout the region, throughout the 5 towns, and every one of those emails will be made part of the public record. So anybody who knew that somebody couldn't come, if that email has been sent, that will be made part of the public record. Thank you, Councilwoman, and that is a good clarification. With that, we start off with Paris Popak. Again, good morning and your name and address.
Hi, thank you. 1 second. Before I start, I started a change.org for people that could not attend. I have over 500 signatures and probably 60 comments.
To be fair with you, that was delivered to the town board this morning. I have already indicated that will also be submitted to the town clerk as part of the record, okay? And I thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Paris Popak. I live in Lawrence, New York, 371 Kenridge Road. Oh, gosh, it already started. Wow. Okay, good morning. Thank you, Supervisor Clavin and the Town of Hempstead Board for hearing from us. And thank you to all the concerned citizens and voters who are here today. I am Paris Popak, immediate past Village of Lawrence Deputy Mayor, and I am here today as a community activist who has lived in Lawrence for 29 years. For the record, as stated before, I am not against development. I am for development done in the right areas with appropriate secret studies and studies that are sensitive to Jewish and secular holidays that properly reflect the flow of traffic. I understand and acknowledge that this board did not pass the original zoning in 2019. Thank you. I'm sorry that you have inherited this mess, but we appreciate your willingness to correct it. What I'm requesting is that you rescind all zoning changes made in 2019, including the grandfathered projects, also enabled with IDA money. We cannot allow developers to harm our community. Inwood, North Lawrence, and Rockaway Turnpike are not the right areas for multiple family developments. The new Nelson and Pope report apparently refutes the original 2019 report, hence our expectation of rescinding of all zoning changes. The new report states that there would be an adverse impact on infrastructure, traffic, environment, and quality of life. We are being crushed by surrounding developments and proposed developments. And please remember that there are 1,500 apartments already constructed across the 878 on Mott Avenue. Evacuations will be compromised, if not impossible, if these projects go forward, and there will be unforgivable tragedy if lives are lost. Intelligent coordination is needed in the 5 towns and the town of Hempstead to affect change. What is needed is pro-family community zoning, single-family housing, parks, a sorely needed library, some shopping, a ball field. Some of these will uplift the area of concern. But the biggest question I have is, what was the public notice before the zoning was changed? Did the town meet the notice requirements? And where's the proof? Will you please provide this and all related Town of Hempstead meeting minutes regarding this 2019 zoning, the passing of the zoning? Who can stop this overdevelopment disaster? You, our esteemed elected officials, can stop this and save us. You are demanding the governor keep Long Island suburban, and we're asking for you to do the same. Keep our community suburban, not urban, rescind all zoning changes, and make our safety, health, and quality of life the priority now and for future generations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Popak. Thank you. Now, I also want to acknowledge, ladies and gentlemen, that was literally 2 minutes and 58 seconds. So I appreciate that. So we do have the 3-minute timer, but I'll tell you right now, I do appreciate it. I also, look, I recognize there are a lot of people here. If you hit the 3-minute timer and you're going to go over, we have to stop you. That's a policy here, and it's not out of rudeness to anybody. That's a policy. but you will be able to supplement your comments, and they will be made part of the record. I don't want anybody to feel they're not getting their chance. We do the 3 minutes, but if you are going over, we will stop you, but you can supplement it. Correct, Mr. LaSquadro?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Mike Pence. Okay? All right. I know. Next, I have Rochelle Stern Kimballson. Maybe give her a little helping hand with that mic.
Oh.
Is that Mike? Mike, I'm going to have you go after. Rochelle's up there right now. I know there's a little bit of a carryover, Sue, okay? Hi, Rochelle. If somebody would be nice enough just to adjust that. Oh, you got it all down by yourself. Okay. All right, if you just give your name and address for the record.
Michelle Stern-Kelvilson, 21 Causeway, Lawrence. I've spoken, thank you for letting me speak. I've spoken here before on the same subject. I was screamed at by Mr. Blakeman to be quiet. This is because of what is happening now. And this happened before COVID. This has been going on a long time. We can't get out of our community. And that's not only Lawrence, it's Inwood, all the 5 towns. And it's dangerous. We can't even go a mile and a half. It takes 25 minutes to just try to get out of town. If you have to go to the bathroom, you're stuck. You can't get out. Something has to be done. And the buildings that are proposed, they started at 1 and 2 bedrooms, now they're 4 bedrooms, 700 cars. Where are they going? You cannot move. You have to do something. And I hope you will do what is right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vice President? Mr. Pence, we'll call you on up there. I don't know if you heard it. I will. If you just give your name and address for the record, thank you.
Mike Pence, 70 Auerbach Lane, Lawrence. I shortened this thing down to a few sentences. We should look at the Lawrence community as part of a 5-mile radius and not look at it as though just the immediate vicinity. There are plenty of permits issued already. Let's see how congested the community gets before issuing any more. You have to live in this community to see what's happened. Traffic backed up on Peninsula Boulevard from Harris Avenue to Mill Road, which is 3 lights. It takes 40 minutes to go from Lawrence to the Southern State Parkway. The main roads, as the side roads in Lawrence, are jammed. You can barely move it most of the time of the day. Rockaway 40 minutes to go from Woodmere Boulevard to Rockaway Turnpike on Broadway. And that's a fact. To keep building, you're going to need to take lawns away to widen the streets, as they've done in Manhattan. They've taken a parking lane and turned it into extended the sidewalks. We moved to the 5 towns for the suburban lifestyle.
Thank you, Mr. Pence. Thank you very much. Next, I have Eric Alexander. Good morning. If you give me name and address for the record.
Eric Alexander, 164 Main Street, Northport.
Can't hear you.
Speak a little bit more to the mic. Thanks.
Sorry, Eric Alexander, 164 Main Street, Northport. Thank you, Supervisor, members of the town board. My name is Eric Alexander. I don't live in Inwood and Lawrence. I run a group called Vision Long Island. We are focused on downtown revitalization, and we do support historically transit-oriented development. We want to start by saying we support the town board in opposing New York City and New York State-based mandates that have come down here to try to take over zoning and push housing everywhere. That should not happen. It's an abomination. First thing. We agree with we agree with the concept that communities should be planned locally, and we support that historically. In 2019, we're in this room where there were community leaders, chamber leaders, and civic leaders that supported the Inwood and Lawrence zoning changes that you've seen. With Cameron Engineering, with Bruce Blakeman on the board, Aaron King Sweeney, other members of the board, we recognized that there was support for some meaningful changes. And I was just down there this Saturday. There are some properties that are just blighted or not, they're for sale or just kind of sitting there. So you're not getting the highest and best use in your community. We understand that the group of people 5 years ago and the group of people here today are probably not on the same page, right? I get it. And we see this. But there is an understanding that the folks that want to rescind this law, we hope that the town encourage the town, while we're opposed to rescinding the law on the record, we recognize that if you do, we hope that the town is open to working with, on a case-by-case basis, whether it be through special use permit, whether it be through variances, to see properly scaled projects move forward in those districts. We also want to say on the record that single-family homes are not the only way other folks need other housing options. Folks who made you breakfast this morning probably may not be able to afford a single-family home at $700,000 on average or higher in Nassau County or in Inwood and Lawrence. So we do need opportunities for change. We need to be flexible, and we hope when the dust settles that folks can come together and see meaningful compromise on appropriate forms of redevelopment. And we recognize this is something that's happening across Long Island as far as the backlash. So we understand.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander, as always.
Thank you.
Next, I have Laia Pinter. Hi, good morning. If you give me a name and address.
Good morning. I'm Leah Pinter. I live in Inwood. I hate to age myself, but I've lived in the community for many, many years, pretty much my whole life. And the changes are drastic. So I invite any of you sitting up there or in the audience who are voting for redevelopment to come spend a week in my house and try to travel. My parents live less than half a mile from my house, and it's faster for me to walk there. You can't get anywhere. Now, for those who are not familiar with what the town is, the Far Rockaway and Nassau County, Five Towns area is a peninsula. And if you look up what a definition of a peninsula is, we are surrounded by water. There is one exit and one entrance to the town. If you've ever been to the neighborhood when there is any emergency, good luck. And I wish anybody who's voting for redevelopment to never have a family member who's involved in an accident or a fire and there's mass casualties. Do you know that there's no hospital anymore on our side of town? St. John's, people aren't going to St. John's. Nobody goes to St. John's. So even if somebody is in a life-threatening emergency, they're still going to travel to a Nassau County hospital. Peninsula Hospital closed. What are you going to do when there is mass casualties in the neighborhood? There's no help. There's an accident on the highway. It takes hours to leave the town. Hours. You can't drive to the neighborhood stores. So we're talking about keeping the infrastructure going. I personally have gone into the Target that's on Burnside. I've gone in there one time. They're open at least, 3-4 years. I went in one time. Why? I'd rather order from Amazon. It doesn't make sense for me to get in my car, to drive anywhere local, because there's nowhere to go. The traffic is unbearable. My children want to go places. I'm like, well, if you could ride your bikes there, maybe. I can't go anywhere. So the people who are voting for it, in my opinion, are self-serving. They are people who don't live in the neighborhood. I'm sorry to this nice man. I'm sure I have nothing against you, but you live in Northport. You don't really have a say in what goes on in our community. And our Okay. The people who are pro-development of these houses, I will say absolutely with certainty, they are making money off of it. So they're.
I just want to say one thing, and I get it, folks, but every time we do like an outburst, we're cutting into our time. And I do want to give everybody the 3 minutes. So I get it. And at the end of it's okay either way you want to go, but I don't want to, you're speaking eloquently. I don't want to lose the time. So please go back on it.
Every single person who's going to get up here and say they want redevelopment is getting money in their pocket. We have a mayor who has voted into Lawrence for 25 votes. That's an abomination to the community who didn't show up to vote for Popak, who is against redevelopment. But at the end of the day, redevelopment is really going to impact the safety, the health of the community. People aren't going to move here. Why did we move here 40 plus years ago? We moved here because it was a beautiful suburban community, and it's not anymore. I'm just going to make one recommendation. You might want to call 2 or 3 people up to line up so that there's no space in between.
It might be a good idea. Absolutely. So thank you very much. Now I'm going to be calling up David Pinter. David. David, is that your daughter or your wife? So I'm gonna follow her advice, and I'm gonna call and say Mary McFitty is going to be called after to kind of have him on deck. So Mary McFitty is going to be next. So good morning, sir. If you give your name and address for the record.
I am Dr. David Pinter. I live at 268 Morris Avenue, and it's hard to follow after my wife said everything so beautifully. I'll just say over my commute, I'm a physician, I work in Queens. My normal commute on a Sunday would be 20 minutes to get over there. Average day would take me 45 minutes. There was an accident on Rockaway Turnpike and the highway, 878, where a tanker flipped over. And it took me over 2 hours, not to get to work, but to get past the 5 towns, to get where Lowe's, where Amazon is. It took me over 2 hours to navigate through the traffic to be able to get out of the 5 towns. You're looking to add hundreds and hundreds of more cars and people over there. The traffic and effect on what will be on the community is disastrous. Like what I've said, there is no hospital. I travel out to go to hospitals. I work in other places. There's nothing over here because they're not. And you have an emergency and you want to go travel on Peninsula Boulevard. You want to travel on Rockaway Turnpike anywhere. You're sitting in hours of traffic. Ambulances are sitting there honking the horn and no one letting them through because there's no place for it to let them through. There are hundreds of cars already blocking their area. Please do not allow this to go through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to call Mary McFitty, and backup is going to be Mike Florio. Hi, good morning. If you give your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Mary Settles McCafferty. I live at 112 Bayview Avenue in Inwood. I thank you first for the opportunity to speak as a homeowner and consider the resolution. I would like for you to rescind this resolution. I am not against or development in the proper areas. Bayview Avenue at present, we have over 50 landscape trucks coming up and down Bayview Avenue. As it was said earlier, there is no hospital for us to go to in the area. It is a residential area. Everyone in my area is familiar with, the families there. We look out for one another. They take care of their land. It is a beautiful area. With your plans to building these high family, not houses, developments, it will take away the God-given sunlight that we have. It will bring additional fumes in the area. It will bring additional weight on the roads that were never prepared or developed to carry all this additional weight. and it would take away the beauty of the area. I have been in Inwood for over 70 years. I grew up in Inwood. I went to all of District 15 schools. I worked with Sister Missy Miller when they were trying to bring trucks and additional buses from out of town into our beautiful area, taking away the beauty of the area. I have raised all of my children in this area. I have grandchildren in this area that have moved away because of the changing and the way that they're changing inward. I ask you today to rescind all of this overdevelopment. If you want to build something, look down Lawrence Avenue. You could tear down some of Lawrence Avenue and put some single-family homes there where people can live there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Next, I'm going to have Mike Florio, and then I'm going to have Clean Handle on deck. Mr. Florio, give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hello, Mike Florio from East Northport, New York. I'm here today representing the Long Island Builders Institute and our 800 members. So I want to thank the supervisor and the town board for having this hearing today. I don't envy the position you're in, but I think one thing that is important to consider is that, developers and builders, we want to go where we're welcomed. And we want to work with the community to have the best outcome possible. And I think it's important to understand that we have a housing crisis here on Long Island, not only on Long Island, but across New York and across this country. If anyone watched the first presidential debate last week, the first question that was brought up was about housing prices. And we have to look at, we have a supply and demand problem that needs to be addressed. We have not invested enough in housing over the past decade, and that is the reason why our home prices are so high right now, or our rental costs are so high. There was a study that was put out by Harvard University a few weeks ago that over half of the renters in the country are paying more than 30% of their income in rent. They're rent burdened. So we do need to look at places where we can do smart development. And I know this town board was not in place when the zoning was put in, but generally we support transit-oriented development because it hopefully encourages people to get out of their cars, to use mass transit, and invest in other types of infrastructure needs that we have. So I would, I think we need to listen to the community and strike the right balance, but I would support this rescission with the grandfathering of the properties that are in there. As your counsel stated earlier, the people have put applications in while the zoning was in place. It would be difficult to go back on that, but I think if there's a way to move forward and find the right balance, we would support that. So I thank you for your time. And
thank you, Mr. Florio. Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, and I said, you know what? I understand everyone's sentiment. We'll be nice in this process. We're here to listen to everybody, and we'll keep it moving along. So I have Ackleen Handel, but and then I have Brian Kearney on backup. Good morning. If you give me name and address for the record. Nice to see you.
Handel, 275 Central Avenue in Lawrence. I have lived in Lawrence over 70 years. So I lived in what was a suburban community where there were houses or garden apartments, not major buildings that you were now planning to put up. I find it difficult to drive around to find a parking space at a supermarket. If I needed a parking space at the library, they don't exist because there is overdevelopment already in this area. I just want you to know, speaking after this lovely lady, Bayview Avenue is houses. People live in their houses. On Central Avenue in Lawrence, around the corner, there are houses and there are garden apartments where rent is, at mine, about $4,000 a month. You're putting up low-income housing in an area that is a more affluent area. If you go down Lawrence Avenue to the water, every house is $1 million+ dollars. It's not a low-income area, and you are destroying an area that people work very hard to be able to live in. And so I do hope this is not only tabled, but gone away with forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brian Kearney?
Good morning, Supervisor Clavin and the board. I'm president of the Steamfitters Local 638 Union. I'm declining to comment today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I have Mo English. Good morning. Just your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mo English. I live at 220 Wanzer Avenue in Inwood, New York, 11096. Thank you very much, members of the board. It's funny to me that I see so many people here that aren't members of my community. This is a community issue. I'm here as a member of the community. I live literally inside the proposed zone. I'm talking as an affected member. This is a bad plan. This is a greedy plan. This is a plan that was done behind closed doors between, backslapping and people who thought they could make a lot of money with people not really being able to pay attention with the COVID pandemic going on. We need to stop this. We need our community to stay close-knit, and we need to stay a community. We don't want Brooklyn. We want residents. We as residents demand this quality of life. Our home prices are high, as mentioned before, because there's a demand to join this community. We want this entire proposal rescinded. We want Article 9 removed. No grandfather projects, no backdoor, no more shady dealings. Let's end this now. It's affecting our livelihood as members in the community. We have taken off of work to be here. This isn't the first time. Hopefully it's the last time. Please, let's have this rescinded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. English. Next, I have Sam Namias. And on deck is Jamie Arsnick. Right there in the hall, yeah. And just so you know, we're going to set up a second microphone over here at the great suggestion of one of the residents there. That'd be great. Thank you very much. Good morning, sir. If you give your name and address for the record.
Sure. I'm Samuel Namias. I live on 575 Chauncey Lane in Lawrence, New York. I'm the new mayor of Lawrence. Fellow elected officials, I'm here today to tell you a story. My election was a very divided election. One thing, and that it was the largest turnout in the history of Lawrence. Almost 2,000 voters came out. But the one thing that unites these voters is the fact that they all don't want this. They don't. People from Lawrence love Lawrence. These voters love Lawrence. They want Lawrence to remain Lawrence. I'm going to make it very quick. I ask you elected officials to remember that they're my constituents are your constituents, and they don't want this. So please take it under consideration.
Thank you, Mayor. Jamie Asknek. I'm terrible with names. I apologize. You can ruin my name anytime you want. You can call me Calvin, Clavin, do whatever you want. It's just desserts. It's not intentional, all right? And I have right on batting on deck, Judith Bernstein. And like I said, it's a great idea. So Judith, if you can go to the other microphone. And good morning. And again, I apologize for wrecking your name. If you give your address, that'd be awesome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Ascona. I reside at 3402 Emmerich Avenue in Wantagh. I am here not as a member of the community, but a former member of Inwood. My mom was born and raised on the block that she lives on, which is Redfern Avenue. It is on this map. I am a businesswoman. I'm not an attorney, so therefore I'm already a few $100s in the hole with today's meeting because I had to contact a lawyer to translate what my mother had received in the mail. Upon opening this, she was in a panic. Mom, forgive me. She's going to be 75 years old. What does this mean? Are they going to take my house? Where am I going to go? My first question to the board, please, is a liaison at no cost being appointed to the people of the community for their questions and to understand any literature that is being sent to them regarding these proposals? That's my first question. Second question is, how do you determine the areas? Do you just look at what might be looked at as abandoned and think, hey, we can put 12 storefronts with 144 apartments above, and that's extra income? What everyone said prior to me, okay, the traffic is horrendous. I live in Wantagh. My mother is in Inwood, again, Redfern Avenue. It takes either of us over an hour to get to each other. I have 3 young children that I would love to bring to my childhood home to see where I grow up, to see members of the community, okay, where I lived for 25 years. But I can't get there. There's just not enough time. It takes me a short amount of time to fly to Florida than to go back and forth to my mom, and I think that's a little bit crazy. So I'm asking on behalf of, my children and myself to please not allow this development to go through, and please keep Inwood and North Lawrence the way it always has been.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next, I have Judith Bernstein, and I'm going to ask Dean Boyer if he wants to testify to the other mic. Good morning. Your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Judith Bernstein. I live at 54 Meadow Lane in Lawrence. And good morning to Supervisor Clavin and the Town of Hempstead members of the board. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. The new engineering report ordered by the current board concluded that the proposed districts could have a negative impact, among other things, on community character, quality of life, public safety and infrastructure, police, fire, other emergency services, traffic, and therefore represent a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. What changed from the first report? I'd like to know. We still do not know the impact of the following projects. The Amazon building that is scheduled to open in December. We have 2 pending residential projects that are in contention. We call them the Pearsall Project and the Woodmere Club. I also note that on paragraph 9 of page 3 that you show empathy for the developers because of money that they had expended. So we are your constituents. Where's your empathy towards us? It's really, I appreciate that you're giving us this opportunity to speak. Our roads are 2 lanes, with the exception of 878 Peninsula Boulevard, Rockaway Turnpike, past Burnside Avenue. Just want to say another point. I asked how many homes there are in Lawrence, 1,600 with 7,500 inhabitants. This project initially, the North Lawrence Inwood Initiative, was going to be over 2,000 apartments. My guesstimate is about 7,000 people. So you were building another town of Lawrence right across the tracks from us. Also, in addition, it's 80% at market rent with 20% based on the AMI. I think it's 80% AMI for first responders, and there was a list of who would be able to be there. So this was never about affordable housing for anyone except the 20% of all the units, let's say 200 affordable units. So please, do not say it's affordable housing, it's market rent. Market rent in our neighborhood, as Jackie Handel said, is $4,000 for a typical 2-bedroom apartment. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I do hope that you rescind this zoning for all, because we do not know the impact of traffic. It does take us, we have to plan our day around it. We have to plan our day around going to the supermarket. I have to plan my day about how long will it take me to get to the hairdresser or the supermarket or the doctor. It's not normal. We really live, it's very stressful. And there's an accident almost every day in our neighborhood, every single day. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Nice to see you. I'm now calling up Dean Boyer, and I have Eliza Katz on deck. Good morning. If you give your name and address for the record.
Morning. My name is Dean Boyer. I'm an attorney at Abrams Fensterman and Lake Success, but I'm here today on behalf of our client, HRK Management, who has an address at 289 Carroll Drive in Lawrence. Excuse me. And we're here to voice our opposition to the proposed enactment of Article 44 as, in fact, violative of SECRA and not adequately protective of public health, safety, and welfare. And indeed, these are the same conclusions that are reached in the legislative intent of the resolution itself. It's because we agree with these broader conclusions related to the rescission of the zoning that we must object to providing the exception for the eligible applications that are to be grandfathered in under the rescinded TOD and related districts. Now, the legislative intent specifically notes the concerns have been raised that the approval procedures do not represent best practices for ensuring a hard look at the significant environmental impacts of multiple high-density mixed-use projects, and that the expedited review process does not provide a meaningful level of public scrutiny, and critically, that it fails to examine the cumulative effects of, again, multiple high-density mixed-use projects. So despite recognizing these deficiencies and resolving to rescind the TOD, the resolution proposes carving out an exception for pending applications out of, as we heard today, a concern of potential litigation. But recognizing that the rescission is in the best interest of the community and the residents, while in the same breath permitting an undetermined number of projects to move forward, to do so would be so devoid of rationality as to be per se arbitrary and capricious and still subject the board to litigation. Likewise, the legislative intent highlights the failure to consider cumulative impacts, but then establishes a mechanism for considering eligible applications on a project-by-project basis. Now, these projects are indisputably part of a cohesive framework and thus subject to a mandatory cumulative impact review. The mere fact that that cohesive framework is rescinded does not change that it is the unifying framework, that it is the underlying framework for multiple projects. So the board cannot pass a type 1 action under SECRA while explicitly acknowledging the deficient assessment of cumulative impacts and then nonetheless grandfather in multiple projects with only an individual assessment. The board has acknowledged the failure to look at cumulative impacts of multiple high-density mixed-use projects. To now assess each eligible application on a case-by-case basis would be a backdoor form of segmentation, which is impermissible under SECRA. So for these reasons, we urge the board to reject the enactment of Article 44 and instead enact a complete rescission of the TOD and related districts without any exception for pending applications. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor, can I just ask you, can you submit that in writing as well?
Happy to.
I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. All right.
Ellie Katz, 141 Jefferson.
Oh, come on, you're jumping the gun, Mr. Katz. I like it. I gotta get somebody on board here. I gotta get Sheldon Gollenbeck on board. But thank you very much. I like your level of excitement this morning.
Ellie Katz, 141 Jefferson Street. I grew up in Lawrence, resident of the area for more than 40 years. You know, I just noticed, I don't know why of all communities, I know we're not here to discuss Northport, but as of the 2020 census, the residents in Northport were 7,300 and change, whereas the census of just Inwood alone was 11,340. It's about 4,000 less in Northport. So perhaps the developers from Northport want to build there.
I told you, you're gonna. That was off your time now. Go on.
Just to echo everything that's been said before, as a volunteer EMT, the roads are a disaster. For those that remember, during the Superstorm Sandy, there were people trying to get away, and it was nearly impossible just on any given day of the week to try to get from one of the 5 towns to the other. It's quite difficult. And again, just over the 878 in Far Rockaway, several thousand units have just gone up, which also adds to our congestion. So honorably, I ask the board to rescind the entire thing, especially Article 9, which seems like a backdoor way to let some developers in. Obviously, we're empathetic to those developers that have already spent money, but I think we need to be empathetic to all the residents of the area who've spent money on their homes and have paid high taxes for the privilege of living in such a beautiful community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. I'm going to ask Sheldon. I'm going to have Mildred Small on deck.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sheldon Gollenbeck. I've been living in the neighborhood since 1972.
Address?
6 Washington Avenue in Lawrence.
Thank you very much.
I've been living here in Lawrence since 1972. Short break for my first couple years of marriage, then came back. I've seen the neighborhood change, not necessarily for the better. We love having Costco there, but there was a lot less traffic when there was only TSS.
Oh, you're dating yourself, but go on.
Okay, I just proving my point. The neighborhood is over congested. You go through the commercial areas of town, and I've seen an increased number of illegal U-turns because for somebody to go around the block will take much longer than making that illegal U-turn, creating daily, hourly, dangerous situations in our commercial areas. The supermarkets don't have adequate parking. The streets aren't wide enough to bring in countless numbers of additional vehicles. Will just take away everything that we love about living in suburbia. So much of it has been lost already. I thank the council for being here. I thank everyone for being here. I know if this meeting was held in an evening instead of on a business day and business hours, this venue would not come close to housing and seating as many people as would want to be here to voice their objections. Please rescind this without grandfathering in anybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. And 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 again, going to your point of the timing, that's why the after the meeting we will have a 30-day period to allow people who couldn't be here. It's just juggling. You do a night meeting, and then some people say you can't. Well, I can't get there at night. It's tougher. So we're trying to do a balance, and that's why we're going to keep it open. I appreciate it, and I did appreciate the TSS reference. Next, I'm going to call Sheldon, and I have Ms. Small.
Good morning to the board. My name is Mildred Small.
Hi, Ms.
I
Small.
reside at 118 Bayview Avenue in Inwood, New York. I want to reiterate everything that everyone has said, as opposed to the one from Northport. But everyone else, yes. I am a resident. I've been in Inwood for over 60 years, and we moved there because we wanted a better way of life. And what they have proposed is interrupting our way of life. And everyone here knows that. The board, I'm sure, even knows that they wouldn't want to live in a place where they can't get out if there was an emergency. We had to leave today at 9 o'clock in order to get here at 10 or 10:30. And on our way here, there was an accident. There was an emergency, cars that couldn't even get by. So we know the issue in Inwood and Lawrence. We just pray that you will not continue on with this. You will rescind it. The grandfathering portion of it, everything will be rescinded. And we would appreciate that. And we pray for the board to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Small. Thank you very much. I'm going to have Sherby Belsky, and on deck I'm going to have Adam Mayer. Hi, how you doing? Name and address, please. Thank you.
Hi, Sherry Belsky, Boxwood Lane, Lawrence, New York. I'm living in the neighborhood for 30 years. We moved here from Brooklyn to have a better life, live in suburbia, and get away from the fast-paced, run-of-the-mill urban areas. And you are allowing these developers to come in to make millions and millions of dollars off the backs of the people living in this community for 30, 40, 50 years who invested millions and millions of dollars in taxes, in their homes, in the community, in the businesses, without consideration for the residents who live here. Aside from the congestion, aside from the problems, we have traffic from Kennedy Airport, we have traffic from the beaches, we have traffic from the schools, we have traffic from all over, and we can't get out. We have two main roads in Lawrence itself. That's Broadway and Central Avenue leading into the 878 and the Rockaway Turnpike. 878 leads into the Rockaway Turnpike. When we have a storm like Sandy, and even a lesser storm, we have floods coming from Kennedy Airport because the water is diverted. Everybody has floods in their basement just from the normal storms. Our sewage is terrible. Our water is terrible. Our electricity goes off. We don't have the facilities to have more and more and more overdevelopment. We're already having trouble from the Far Rockaway development. We luckily have a compromise with the Woodmere development. And Pearsall, we were not able to stop the Pearsall development. There are underhanded agreements being made left and right where the residents are not knowing about it. We are not being confronted about it. We are not being told about it. And left and right, we are being overdeveloped and we are not being considered. We are the residents of these neighborhoods. We need to know what's going on here. We have to be considered, not the developers from Northport who say they're coming here so that people can get the train. The train is not the New York City subway. The train is the Long Island Railroad. $10 a piece? This is cheaper? This is going to keep people from using their cars? That is not true. None of what is being said by the developers or the building associations are true. This is our neighborhoods. This is our suburban communities. We all get along in our neighborhoods. Inwood, Far Rockaway, Lawrence, Woodmere. We have a beautiful, beautiful community. We are happy the way things are. Stop coming into our neighborhoods to ruin it for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Belsky. Next, I'm going to have Adam Mayer, and I'm going to have Craig Pio on deck. Good morning. If you give your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Adam Mayer. I reside at 227 Wanser Avenue in Inwood. My wife and I moved here nearly 15 years ago to raise our family in a peaceful suburban environment. We came here to escape the urban hellscape known as Brooklyn. The districts created several years ago severely undermined that dream. Our home is literally located in the heart of the new district with potential for a multi-story apartment complex, including first-floor retail directly next door. The retail components can include bars and taverns. I challenge a single proponent of this district to enable their family to live next to this. I'm grateful to the board for having the courage to consider rescinding these districts. I'm grateful the proposed motion acknowledges the severe environmental impact potentially caused by these districts. The districts should be rescinded entirely and without any conditions. I implore of you to take swift actions to rescind these districts with prejudice. Besides the well-stated and voluminous reasons to rescind these districts on the merit, many of which have already been well articulated already, I would like to highlight the manner in which these districts were approved. There was entirely insufficient notice provided to the impacted residents. For contrast, I justly received 5 letters notifying me of today's hearing, to the credit to the town attorney. When these motions were passed, I received no such notice. That is a travesty and amounts to the type of smoke-filled backroom deals to which we all abhor. Additionally, of equal concern, the current motion proposes to permit certain projects to proceed given the developer's expenditures. This is also unacceptable. While I wish not to cast aspersions on anyone, this caveat to the rescission has many flaws. First, the projects that would still be permitted to proceed even with a rescission are not yet published and must be a part of the record the board votes on. Second, this has potential for significant abuse and corruption. What this exception amounts to is to give the board the political cover to rescind the districts, yet still permit certain undisclosed projects to proceed, undermining the rescission and cleverly ignoring the undeniable desire and wishes of the constituency and tax-paying affected citizens. I encourage you in the strongest terms to completely rescind the motion without any exceptions and to ignore the special interests and businesses taking advantage of our suburban neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Next, I'm going to call up Craig Pio, and on deck will be Philip Bedler. Craig Pio, Philip Bedler. Can we check outside just in case they're outside? In the interim, I will go with Ms. Bedler. How you doing? Give your name and address to the record. Good morning.
Good morning. Philip Bedler, 8 Albany Place, Inwood. I've lived in Inwood for the past 34 years, and I've enjoyed the neighborhood. What I've seen, I'm in agreement with that. The quality of life in Inwood is being deteriorated just by these situations. So as a result, where I live right now, I see my house being part of a plan, which I don't know why it has been part of the plan for development. I see where I live on a dead-end street, and currently it has become a ghetto because I've seen where people who are renters have moved into the area and have used so many trucks and cars in car repairs right in that dead end. So that itself has reduced the quality of life. So for us to now have new development, it will further erode that quality of life. Thank you. I will yield my rest of my time.
Thank you very, very much, sir. Next, I have Shaka Zakan, and then I'm going to ask Abe Belsky to be on standby. Okay. Robert Lano. And I have had a couple of people that are here opposed, but they didn't want to testify, and that's okay. I'll still call you. If you don't want to come up, that's fine. You can submit in writing. Rich Brzezinski. Okay. Mindy Gartner. Okay. Joe Tedisco. How you doing? And then I'm going to have Barbara Siegel on deck. Mr. Tedisco, if you give your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Joseph Tedisco. I live at 242 Lexington Avenue, West Hempstead. I'm 20 years old and a lifelong resident of West Hempstead. I'm here to express my disappointment that the 2019 Inwood and North Lawrence zoning initiative may be done away with in the midst of a housing crisis. We are at a turning point in the history of our island, where once we had limitless potential, Long Island is now stagnating, held back by exclusionary zoning. In one direction, I see us allowing our natural growth and densification. As our population grows, we must have a place to house everyone. If not, if we artificially prevent growth, I see us declining. Unless we allow our communities to evolve and adapt to the challenges of today, we will be woefully unprepared for the future. I, along with all other young Long Islanders, am faced with a choice. Do I stay on Long Island, my home, the place that I love, and confront debilitating housing costs, or do I leave for a place willing to take me in? Without more housing, people will choose to leave. We already face an exodus of people due to the high cost of living. We cannot allow this to continue. Blocking development will only worsen trends that are ruining our future. According to the New York State Department of Taxation, the median residential sale price for 2022 was 4 times the statewide household income. This is up from double the average in 1997. Looking at Inwood and Lawrence specifically, the discrepancy is staggering, with home prices almost 10 times the average income according to the Census Bureau. We cannot maintain this. An unjust burden is being placed upon the younger generation as we are withheld from having a home. Transit-oriented development is a great way to ease the effects of this crisis. Creating dense, walkable neighborhoods will allow for more people to live in our communities while improving their character. Most people would rather have a booming downtown than abandoned storefronts and empty parking lots. Encouraging the use of transit will also alleviate one of the greatest annoyances on Long Island, traffic. You cannot get rid of traffic until you get cars off of the road. By building housing, improving character, and alleviating traffic, transit-oriented development is one of the smartest ways to build. Although I am not from Lawrence, we are all part of one township, one community. And no, I am not making any money today or ever for this opinion. At the end of the day, we can only improve our communities if we allow for change to occur. Will we force our island to stagnate and decline, or will we allow it to develop and grow? I hope we choose wisely. Our future depends on it.
Okay, next I have,
Yes, for the record, I do support the development in West.
okay, no, that's, okay, we'll move on now. Next I have, Martin Oliner. Martin Oliner. We'll come back again. Anne Marie DeSalvo. Oh, I'm sorry, Martin. How you doing?
How are you?
I didn't see you coming over there. How's everything? How's your name and address, please? Thank you.
Martin Oliner, 195 Central Avenue, Lawrence, New York. I'm the former mayor of the village of Lawrence. I want to first thank you, Mr. Clavin, and of course, Councilwoman Guzby, for having the insight of re-examining this, putting it on a moratorium, and concluding that Cameron Engineering just made a mistake. So we understand clearly that Article 43, which was passed 5 years ago, was a mistake. We understand it was a mistake. We didn't have SECRA. To put it in the terms of Alan, who spoke legally, in which he will be submitting to you, there was a massive mistake here. It's not safe. Our own engineers, Nelson and Pope, have told you it's not safe. Now let's talk about simply the grandfathering part. You can't grandfather something that didn't work to begin with. It's any lawyer, it's black letter law, that you just simply cannot do that. You can't take a law that didn't work, fix it, and then say that there's hardship. The builders who are involved here are totally stopped from any claim that they might have against the county, or for that matter, the town. However, I can assure you that just like others in the mistake have made political mistakes, for instance, I think there was a massive mistake in changing the bail law in New York, and that led to all sorts of considerations. I think something that what you're doing here today, considering any going forward in any way and not totally rescinding the law that was passed inappropriately a while ago, or even if it was passed appropriately but without sufficient SECRA, would be an enormous mistake on the town's part. It would lead to much chaos, way too much chaos. And so, although I'm very sympathetic to anyone who might have bought property, I'm not sufficiently sympathetic to suggest that that could be grandfathered. I think we need to look at this anew. I think the community needs to be involved. I think it's been clear by all the conversation today that there wasn't sufficient notice in the past. Whether the board 5 years ago did good or bad or acted in good faith or bad faith may be totally besides the point. The issue today is rescission completely, and this law has to be rescinded completely because Nelson and Pope have told you that it simply doesn't work. And because it doesn't work, it can't be fixed. So we need to start all over again and look at whatever needs to happen. I think you understand the sentiment of the community, which I want to echo completely. Everything that Mayor Namaya said, that Paris Popak said.
Mayor, you know the rules, but I will say, once a mayor, always mayor, so I will say that. But I do appreciate your comments, and I appreciate some insight on this. So thank you very, very much for coming down. Next, I have Anne Marie DeSalvo, and I am going to, and if Geraldo Castro wants to speak, I'll put you on deck. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon. How are you all? I'd like to speak to the board regarding transit-oriented development in the town of Hempstead and my reasons for my support. Number one is jobs. This project and others like it bring high-paying, skilled jobs so that our fellow neighbors can afford to live here. We all know how costly it is to live in the town of Hempstead. This development will feed not only the direct community, but the surrounding areas. Number two, the tax base. We are desperate to raise our tax base. This happens in two ways and two ways only: develop underutilized and depressed properties or raise taxes. Number three, quality developments bring new neighbors and keep long-term residents from leaving the area. Heatherwoods has a decades-long hard-earned reputation of building quality developments that improve neighborhoods. I wholeheartedly support this transit-oriented development. Thank you.
Okay, listen, hold on. Without any of you yelling, I know what you're going to say. You say, what is your address? Because I know you're going to. What community do you live in? I live in Freeport. Listen, folks, I told you, I'm going to try and do this the process the right way with all of you. I know it is. We don't need to yell. I know what you were going to say because I was going to ask the question. So don't worry, all right? Now, I have Geraldo Castro, but it says you don't want to speak. Do you want to speak? No. Geraldo Castro? You got to go to the mic and give your address and get yelled at. Yeah, exactly. Brother, get in line. I get yelled at every day, all right? Come on.
So, yeah, I'll be real quick. My name is Geraldo Castro, Village Administrator of the Village of Lawrence, newly appointed. I currently live in Lynbrook, 114 South Franklin Avenue, but I lived in Inwood on 21 Grove Street, right where my father lives, for 23 years before I moved. The only thing I'm going to say, I worked in Lawrence for close to 20 years, and I will say that everything that the constituents of Lawrence has said, as well as Inwood, is 100% factual. There's no exaggeration at all. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Count. Next, I have Salvatore Castro. He's going to take a pass? Okay. Edward Braun? Okay. Helen Storch? Helen? Okay. Chet Pietrats? Okay, sorry. And while Chet's going up there, I have Ayer Markovitz on deck if you would like to testify. Good morning, if you give your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Chet Petrak, 234 Allen Street, Lawrence. I'm going to speak to you on two accounts. I'm going to speak to you as a resident and as a first responder. As a resident, as my friend over there mentioned TSS, my grandfather owned Rocky's Market. I know the best meatballs. I still hear it to this day. But I grew up in this area, okay? And we still have people sneaking families in. My family owned 236, was right next to me. We were told it was going to be a family, mother, daughter. Now I have 4 families living in that house. Right across the street from me, there's 5 families living in that house. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. We're fighting on the parking. Since they have moved in, I've killed 5 rats in my yard. We've never had rats. And that's just one building. What's going to happen when we bring all these other buildings? Allen Street is falling apart. To date, there are 8 potholes there that us as the residents have to fill in because the town can't get there. Okay? Now, as a first responder, during Sandy, I volunteered my time. I am a rescue diver. I volunteered to go to all these communities and swim through people's houses, pulling them out of the houses, pulling their animals out of houses. Nobody can get around. Cars are everywhere. Okay? I had an accident. I helped out. I was on scene by myself. All my fellow EMTs, we know we keep jump bags in our truck. We couldn't get an ambulance to us because there's all the cars stopped. Fire department, Hot Solar, we all work hand in hand. We can't get nowhere. Nobody wants to move. Okay, now you want to bring more people in here and you want to bring low-cost housing? Who's going to want, my family is 5 generations in house. I don't want all this low-cost housing and all this extra development. This area can't take it. Sewage has already been collapsed on my street alone. I live in Allen Street. Next to me is a warehouse. That street in front of me, that sewer collapsed because of the semi-tractor trailers coming in. Now, the people from Northport, everywhere else, develop in your area. Okay? As a veteran, I go to Northport for my medical care. Northport's beautiful. They got plenty of room. Go ahead. You know, everyone else that, you know, wants to develop here, the young gentleman, I'm glad you have a house. 20 years old, good for you. Develop in your area. Okay? All right? We're a tight community. I grew up in this community. I could leave my door open. It has gotten to the point where people on my street know that I'm a medic, and if something happens, they'll come to me because the ambulance can't get to them. And they know my doors are open to them. The Blackwells, the Puglisi's, we know all of them. We watch each other's house for years. Can't do that now. I can't leave my door open. I have a service dog. I can't leave my door open. Back then, you could leave your windows open. Can't do it. Okay? We're too overdeveloped. Thank you.
Thank you, Chet.
Made it under the wire.
I am Markovic. I did say thank you to you. I gave you one. But you made me hungry talking about the food, too, all right? So, Iyer. All right. Next, I have Ray Goger. Good morning. If you give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Raymond Goger. I'm from 135 Sunset Avenue, Farmingdale, New York. I am the business agent for Local 638, and I cover all communities in Nassau County for the 2,000 members in my area that do construction and service. Like a lot of people said, they left Brooklyn, they left Queens, they all came out to Lawrence or Inwood. I went to Long Beach. And then when I was going to Long Beach, you had the TSS and no 878. So how was your traffic then, right? And I'd like to know where in this great Long Island or Nassau County is a place where there isn't no traffic. Because there's always traffic. I'm sorry to say. But to get ahead in life, you do have to go out to the 5 towns, or Long Beach, or Nassau County, because we made it nice. So people are saying, how are you destroying these neighborhoods? Because you came from other places to come here, right? To make your life better. But let's just close the doors, put a fence around Nassau County and say nobody's wanted. That's totally wrong, okay? And your hospital, Peninsula Hospital, it was a dangerous place to go. That's why they closed it down. Doctors didn't even want to go there, okay? Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, I'm going. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, please, come on. We've been great today. Next, I have Brian Nigro, and we're going to put Alexander Novak on deck. Good morning. If you give your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Supervisor. My name is Brian Nigro. I reside at 131 Brook Street, Riverhead, New York.
Go ahead.
No, okay, come on.
Yeah.
Please, Mr. Nigro.
I represent hundreds of union sheet metal workers from Local 28 that reside here in Nassau County. Local 28 is in favor of any transit-oriented development. I'll say even as a father of young adult children, I'm concerned about what's going to happen on this island all the way out by me, all the way into Lawrence. There's no place for young people to go. So I'll keep my comments brief. I'm in favor of the development,
Okay.
as is my union.
Thank you, Mr. Negro. Next, I have up Mr. Novak. How are you?
Hello, Alexander Novak. My address is 132 Fulton Street. I'm an attorney in Cedarhurst. I've been there for 20 years. So a few things I think are fallacies. Governor Hochul thinks that by putting more apartments along the Long Island Railroad, that we're going to have more people traveling into the Long Island Railroad. I have 6 associates who it's hard for them to even come to my office in Cedarhurst. Everybody wants to work at home. And I see that Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, they're losing a lot of money because people are not using it. And also already, from Lawrence, I'm next to Lawrence Avenue, going straight into the 5 towns, all along the Far Rockaway line. There are already apartments, and the apartments I see have signs that have vacancies. There's co-ops that are there, they're not being sold. Some are, some aren't. But I was here 5 years ago when they talked about this concept of doing something over in this area, which is right around the corner from me. And I think at that time it was to develop with 2-story housings, attached housing or something like that. And that would then bring a lot of people in. They'd be able to have housing. They'd have to have backyards and have front yards and bring families in there. And I don't think there was a lot of opposition to that concept 5 years ago. But I think what the opposition is that now we're in the neighborhood. We have what's going on in Far Rockaway. We have what's going on in other neighborhoods. We oppose Pearsall. There's a lot of housing of the same kind, high housing. That's not going to really bring in families because I think that it's very hard to have families who have children. I used to live in Manhattan. They're not going to go play down in some kind of park by themselves. But if they have a little backyard, if it's a small backyard, they can have a barbecue. They can have fun. And that's what I thought was going to happen 5 years ago. And if I believe I came to this meeting here and they had little diagrams of those houses would look like, and I don't think there was as much opposition as now is coming up. So as many other people have spoken, I don't have anything else to say. What they did, they said, I don't want to be redundant. I think that's the position. There is kind of housing that needs to be needed in the neighborhood, not large single-family housings, but smaller attached housings would be available to young people to move into.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I have Kevin Schuckman with John Tedesco on deck.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? Name and address, please.
How you doing? Evan Schuckman. I live at 5 Beechwood Drive in Lawrence. Thank you to all the members of the town of Hempstead for calling this meeting. I didn't realize there was an opportunity to speak, so I just wrote down a few quick notes. For what it's worth, I thought it was important today not only to show up as a resident, but also because I was concerned there weren't going to be, I guess, younger people like myself who were supposed to be sending their kids off to sleepaway camp this morning. 3 of my kids, one of which it's her first time going. I had to explain to my kids that I felt that it's also an important civic duty to go up and stand up for things that are right, for things that are for the future of our community, and most importantly is their safety. I think that what people don't realize is that the 878 is a road that's not governed by the Village of Lawrence. Broadway, which runs throughout Lawrence, is a roadway that's not governed by the Village of Lawrence, and that you have an apex of many different governmental areas that come to a confluence in our neighborhood, and that therefore causes a lot of decisions that should be made not to be made because there's a lot of different agencies that have to weigh in on these things. And so therefore, on Broadway, which is not a village road, there are not nearly enough traffic lights. On the 878, where there are constantly kids crossing, it's multiple lane highway, and there's constantly cars backed up, and I don't feel that it's safe for the kids to go in between any of these roads. A few other points I wanted to bring up. Number one, so that everybody's aware, the developer behind this project is Heatherwood. So you could Google it, Heatherwood. If anybody lives in the town in West Hempstead, they'll know that the development going on there is by Heatherwood. And if you ever talk to anybody in West Hempstead in the last few weeks, Heatherwood developers shut down their Verizon service for almost an entire week because of the poor development that they did and the vendors that they used. And thus, if you want to find out why some of this development was passed in years past, you should look at who was in charge in the town of Hempstead at that time and what vendors that work for Heatherwood or Heatherwood themselves were contributing to those people's campaigns, for what it's worth. Okay? I also want to say that someone who's in the retail business, commercial retail business, as a retail broker, that the amount of units you're proposing to develop should be supported by a tremendous amount more of retail space. They're talking about 15,000 square feet of retail for all the hundreds of units. So therefore, that's not enough space for a supermarket, maybe back in the day for Rockies, but not for today. Certainly not enough parking for these people who are going to be living there to shop. So again, where are they going to go? They're just going to be constantly pushed out into our community to the existing supermarkets that we have. Okay, and in terms of transitory development, there is no site plan approval nearly that needs to be had in these types of developments.
Thank you very much. Before I call up our next speaker, I just wanted Chet to know, after you spoke, my chief of staff had a flashback to his childhood growing up, where he admitted to sneaking out of Lawrence Junior High so they could go get Rocky's meatballs whenever they could. So I just want to let you know there was definitely a great connection from my chief of staff, Jack Libbert. I now am going to call up John Tedesco, and Ms. Meriday is on deck. Good morning. Oh, it is actually good afternoon now, if you give your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, John Tedesco, 58 Remsen Avenue, Valley Stream. No relation to the Joe Tedesco that spoke earlier, well, to my knowledge. Thank you, Supervisor and town board members and my fellow town of Hempstead residents and neighbors. I was raised in the town of Hempstead and currently live in Valley Stream. I had a business in Cedarhurst and a business in Inwood in the past. I'm currently employed by a company who is headquartered in Inwood with 800 employees nationally. There were comments today that we are being crushed by overdevelopment, perhaps in some ways, but in other ways, I have to say that I feel that we are being crushed by the massive exodus of our vibrant and smart youth. Brain drain is real, and I feel that is dangerous for the future of the town of Hempstead. My two kids received their college degrees in New York and were forced to leave because of lack of housing. That is the number one reason they left. I would prefer them to stay with me. I beg the town to do everything possible to find smart, respectful path to create more housing uniformly throughout the town of Hempstead, including the 5 towns, for the benefit of the town at large and the island itself. I believe also that less housing overall, at any price, at any rate, market rate or affordable, quote unquote, the more housing, the less housing there is, the more it's unaffordable because of the inventory. We need more inventory. When there's less housing, the housing becomes more affordable across the area. Contrary to what was accused earlier, I personally am not getting money for this development. I'm simply driven by the sadness that my kids essentially were forced to leave, and I recognize that it is an island-wide problem. There's a lot of passion here. I own a home in the town of Hempstead. I have the same concerns as everyone here, but I'm also looking at it a very pragmatic view. We can't live in a bubble. And for that reason, I support resolutions for respectful and well-thought-out transit-oriented development in the town of Hempstead and the 5 towns. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I have Meta Meriday. Good afternoon. If you can give your name and address for the record.
Meta J. Meriday. And I live in Baldwin, so if anyone wants to meet me in the parking lot, line up. Just let me say what I need to say. I'm amazed, astonished, disappointed, disillusioned by the number of people, passionate, I get it, fervent, I understand, I live in Baldwin, okay. But the fact that you're here talking about issues, whether it's your roads and the flooding, whether it's housing and zoning, crickets in this room with a $500 million budget that focused on those same issues for your quality of life. and the safety of your children and your seniors. Crickets in this room. I was never really a supporter of transit-oriented design, and I live in Baldwin, but I fought to keep that $10 million that our tax dollars in Baldwin, Town of Hempstead, and Nassau County earned. I fought to keep the $10 million for Inwood and Lawrence. And no, don't live there. I've experienced traffic there. But the important value of that funding, as Eric Alexander said, and we can sit here and agree to disagree, but like the gentleman said before me, and I appreciate what he said, let's be respectful about it, because we do need development. I agree with the speaker who said that this housing issue is not about affordable housing, because it isn't. I stand before this body on a regular basis, monthly even, to fight for affordable housing and supportive services and economic development for our veterans and for our seniors, monthly at best. Where are the rest of you? I stood here to fight about redistricting, where the backroom deals, and don't think it hasn't stopped, folks. It's only escalated, okay? You're gonna sit there and say, oh, I agree, I appreciate what the council is doing, but then you say, oh, you got grandfather deals in here. Think about it. This is an election year. Look at those contributions, okay? Look at those deals. Look at those contracts. I think we should do something about it. And lastly, before my time is up, and I generally don't, I go beyond the 3 minutes because usually there's nobody else here except workers that we pay for. I have on a say no to the casino. So half of your arguments, the majority of them, impact that. Think what's going to happen to Uniondale, Hempstead, East Meadow, Baldwin. If that casino deal, that wasn't a backroom deal, that was a back boardroom, ballroom deal that is going to impact us all. So if you're going to fight against what you don't want to have in your community, that Coliseum is going to negatively impact us all in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maraday. Next, I have Lenny Minerva Vino. Lenny? Then I have Sam Davis. Sam Davis. All right. I have Joseph Lifshutz. Mr. Lifshutz, there you go. If you give your name and address there for the record. And on deck, I have Regina Todd. Hi, good afternoon. Your name and address. Thank you.
Name is Joseph Lifshutz, 44-year resident, maybe 45, going on in Lawrence. It feels like maybe 200 years ago that I lived there, because the neighborhood has changed so radically in the last 40 years that this project was like the icing of the cake. This is what you call insanity at its highest level, immorality at its highest level. Somebody 5 years ago dreamt up this crazy idea of taking 70 acres and building 2,000 apartments in an area that you can't move in now. It's impossible to build this item. It's impossible to develop this item. 2 years ago, I was at a meeting here where 1,000 people were sitting here. And every one of them said the same thing that many of these great speakers spoke this evening, especially this afternoon. In spite of the fact, last time 2 years ago, it was during the week and at night. This year, they picked a holiday weekend during the day, figuring it will cut down on the amount of opposition. There's total opposition to this project. This is a Republican setup, a political item that's become developing. I'm told that Heatherwood has Republican lobbyists supporting that project. This is very dangerous. And we're dealing with something now that is above everything else, and we enter the political realm. This is the project that they want to exempt, grandfather through. This is the 5-story buildings, 5-story buildings, rental housing in the middle of Lawrence, Inwood, Cedarhurst. It's insane. It doesn't make sense. Right by the railroad, from Lawrence, the post office goes down. I don't think people have an idea of what the event of this development is. And I hope they look all of this at the picture. 5-story buildings, apartment buildings. The rest of the project had pictures. Last 2 years ago, I submitted the project exactly, 30 pages of detailed zoning that was passed here in the dead of night, totally ready to dig without anybody having an input. We now can't get around Lawrence, period, the 5 towns, period. Everyone said it, it's a known fact. Now, I just want to end with this statement from your engineer. During the aforementioned moratorium, the town engaged the firm of Nelson Pope, and this said firm that the town engaged determined that based upon the previous failure to take a hard look during the previous environmental review potential projects under the current provisions of the TOD district, the NB zoning overlay district, this project could have significant negative impacts.
Thank you,
on,
Mr.
among
Lifshitz.
other
You can add, Mr. Lifshitz. Mr. Lifshitz. We again, sir. We told the 3-minute. You can always supplement it. I do want to remind everybody that this is put in place by a prior administration. This was put in place before I was supervisor, and majority of the people on this board are up here. We're here having this because we listened to the residents. We scheduled the meeting and are going to keep it open for comments because we're respectful of the residents. And for you to make a representation, we didn't think anybody was going to come. I just want to let you know, in case it was sunny or rainy, I made sure we put tents outside just for the overflow that I knew was going to be here today. So just so you know, this board is actually really kind of, delighted you all came. This board wants to hear you here. I don't want you to have the impression otherwise, because you know what? It's just something that we're respectful of everybody. We listen to everybody, and we have concerns, and that is why we're here, and that's why we're delighted everybody is here. So I don't want you to think otherwise, not with this board. So thank you. Next, I'm going to call up this young lady right here. And your name and address.
Yes, good morning. My name is Regina Todd.
Name is Todd.
Hi. 67 Stevens Avenue, Hempstead, New York. And I do thank you for having these meetings. You had them when we were getting the development ready for Heatherwoods in West Hempstead. The West Hempstead and the Hempstead communities are excited about the progress of the Heatherwoods development in West Hempstead. The Heatherwoods organization has been responsive to the community's concerns and desires for the development of this property, which has been an eyesore in the West Hempstead community for over 2 decades. They truly care about integrating their project with the concerns and cares of the neighbors and neighborhood. They're going to revitalize West Hempstead, which is sorely needed. This is a moment in time for all of Nassau County that will last a lifetime. The West Hempstead and Hempstead communities are thankful to the Heatherwood organization and to the town, and we look forward to a bright future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I'm going to call up Bilha Gladamine. And on deck, I'm going to call up Mike DeRosa. Take care, Mayor. Mike DeRosa. You can be up. And I have Imitz Khan on deck. Good afternoon, sir. If you give your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael DeRosa, and I've lived at 208 Lawrence Avenue in North Lawrence. I say that because there's a lot of Lawrence representation here today. For 64 years. My building is located in the Subdistrict 1 of the proposed North Lawrence TOD district. I'm probably the only owner in the TOD district who still lives there. My property has been owned by my family since 1912, and I'm very aware of the changes to our community for the last 25 years. Growing up during the 60s and 70s, I witnessed multiple fires within a block of our home. As a 7-year-old, I watched the Lawrence Post Office being built as I stood in my backyard. That's where it is. After one of those fires, while other commercial entities have replaced the rest. Naturally, I was excited to learn of the projected TOD when it was introduced in 2019. I attended the initial town hall meeting at number 4 school in Inwood, hosted by Bruce Blakeman, and I followed the development nearly every day since that time. And it was advertised, it was out there, and it was known. It was not a backdoor deal for anybody who thinks it was. Meetings were right here. Afterwards, past it, I was here. My section of Lawrence Avenue gets a great deal of foot traffic throughout the day, many of whom are Long Island Railroad commuters. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm literally 50 yards from the Lawrence Railroad station. And weekend religious worshipers. Currently, the Long Island Railroad station is a tale of two cities, depending on what side of the train you're sitting. South of the station is the village of Lawrence, while north side is the hamlet of North Lawrence. It's obvious to see the difference when you pull into that train station. I grew up when this thing came about, and Heatherwood is being mentioned. They bought the property across the street from me, and I long for the day that I can actually wake up and not look at school buses. And I thought this was going to be it, but it's faced some opposition, which I understand. Opposition is, it's fine. That's what the neighborhood's about. But in the same token, that's where it's coming from. I just want to, point out a couple of things. If they're going to develop across the street where the bus yard is, you also have to recognize the fact that 130 buses will get taken off the road every morning. Well, not off the road, but in and out of that lot. They will have to move somewhere else, which will lighten traffic tremendously. So just keep that in mind. I want to thank you guys for staying with us and listening to the public. I really have no care which way it goes either way. I just want better and brighter days for my area, and we deserve better, and the town of Hempstead deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeRosa. Next, I have Imitzi Khan. Hi, how you doing? Come on up to the mic and give your name and address. Thank you very much. Oh, no, right back there. The mic right behind you. There you go. Thank you very much. You want to submit something for the record? I got you. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. If you give your name and address, that'd be great.
Khan, 17 Alvin Place. I will try to be very much brief because I can't speak much.
You're fine.
Basically, on the first page, you see the layout of the area around my house on which I submitted.
Just come to the mic. There you go.
On the first page I submitted, you will see the layout of the area around my house. Mm-hmm. And then I send the rest of the pictures of the parking area on the streets. The parking is full of capacity, and we can't go anywhere else. Then when you go outside, you see the congestion, you see the air will not be clean when you put a lot of guys on the I can't explain. The other thing is when you do the demolition, mm-hmm. and demolition in the close proximity to our houses, we can't have the demolition with the debris and the asbestos or anything. And that's a very much concern. I'm already asthmatic, and that's the problem. The other thing is the proposed building on the narrow road, it can't have it. They made, the proposed building on the narrow road, they can have it. They made the apartments on Regent's apartment on the Central Avenue was a very wide road, and the next building was like 600 something yards away. And our houses, it can't have it. Everything will be covered. Our house will be wholly will be covered. So we can't have the rise building in front of our house. As they are saying, it will be very economical. People will get the cheap houses. It is a lie. If you see the Central Avenue apartments, it starts from $2 million, goes to $5 million. And the assessment is 10 times less. The assessment comes around 200,000. And they're paying tax like 7,000 per year. How come it's possible? So the main thing is, I like to oppose this one because it's not like it with the people or any people I don't like, but to do the business on the right way. If you have the warehouse, one warehouse, second warehouse, do the business right way and employ the people over there, but not the development.
Mr. Khan, just so you know, I'm going to make part of the record not only the photographs of the street and the building, of the map you drew where you're showing your residence, as well as the various concerns you've listed here for the environmental, the street parking, the roads, the financial point you just made, and a couple of suggestions. I'm going to make every part of this part of the record.
Secondly, I want to amend that I'm not saying that do not develop it, develop in the right way. You cannot develop in the middle of the town and you're tearing the 20,000 houses and making like the high-rise building over there. You can't do in the middle of the town. If you want to do it, do on the outer skirt of the city. Go to a different place where there's just a raw land over there. You can't demolish the houses. You have to demolish like 200 houses to make this.
I understood, but I'm going to make this part of the record on this, okay? Next, I'm going to call up Ruth Noble. Hi, Ms. Noble. How are you?
Hi, thank you.
Give your name and address for the record.
My name
Thank
is
you.
Ruth Noble. I live at 33 Jeanette Avenue in Inwood. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. Everybody's been talking about the traffic, the congestion, the emergency services, the strain on our sewage, our electricity. I want to speak as a mom of little kids. From the front of my house, I see Redfern Avenue, and from the back of my house, I see Bayview Avenue. So I'm directly impacted by much of the development that's been proposed. I have 3 small children, and I'd like you to understand some of the things that we've started to face from some of the apartment buildings near us. People need space, and when they don't have space, and they live in these crowded buildings without yards, they come outdoors. And then I, as a mother, have to deal with some of the following things. I have a little 2-year-old who's a late walker. And when I walk in front of my house with her, she stumbles, she trips sometimes, and I always have to be afraid that she's fallen into broken glass. I have to be afraid that when she falls, excuse me, she's going to land in dog poop. And when you bring so many people into such crowded areas, these issues become more widespread. These are things I already deal with. It's going to get so much worse. The crime in the neighborhood. I moved out of New York City to Nassau County because I wanted better for my children. I wanted them to have space. I wanted them to have grass. I wanted them to have fresh air. I wanted them to be able to play safely outdoors without inhaling the smells of marijuana. I've watched my children's school bus have trouble turning, having to back down a block because there are not enough parking spots, and cars have parked illegally in spots that say no parking here, but there is nowhere else for these people to park because these buildings do not have sufficient parking. And I've watched my own children's school bus struggle to pick up my children for school because of the parking situation. I've come home in the evening and not been able to access my own driveway because somebody parked in a way that I could not get into my driveway. I've had to carry 3 sleeping, cranky kids to my own home because I couldn't pull into my driveway because there is already not enough parking in the area between Redfern and Bayview. When people don't have space, they take care of things outdoors. My street has felt like an auto shop at times. There are people out there fixing their cars on my block because it's a quiet, dead-end block, and they have nowhere in their own apartment buildings to take care of that. I have kids who'd like to bike around the block, and they can't because there are engines open with all kinds of stuff being blown out of those engines. When people don't have enough space to live in their own space, they spend more time outdoors. They have loud music at night. I've had children wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning unable to sleep when the windows in my house are closed, but there is so much noise from late night parties that my children cannot sleep. So I believe everyone should have somewhere to live and should have their own space, but apartment buildings crowding people is just not the way for families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noble. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. If anybody has to use the bathroom or get a glass of water, and then we'll pick it up. And the next person I have on here is Yitkok Paley, and next will be Judy Stern. We'll start up at 12:30 promptly.